Hello there, AP Environmental Science class. Welcome to part one of my lecture on Chapter 15, Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. We do have about 64 slides or so to this presentation. So once again, I'll make this presentation in two parts. This will be part one, and again, part two will come up after this. So make sure that you view both parts to the Chapter 15 lecture so that you are well aware of what's going on with Chapter 15. Again, energy efficiency and renewable energy. All right, here we go. Core case study, we start off with saving energy and money and reducing our environmental impact. So about 43%, you're going to see that number come up a bunch few times in this lecture. 43% of money Americans spend on energy is unnecessarily wasted. So what are sources of this waste? Well, inefficient use of gasoline in car engines, one of the ways, and air leaks can cause a heat loss from buildings. We also talked about some other ways energy was wasted in your previous chapter, chapter 14, which talked about non-renewable energy. So there are easy and cost-effective solutions. One is to caulking home windows and doors. That's when you put that white stuff around the windows and doors to prevent any air leaks, heat loss, or even in the summertime, cool loss, right? Because in the summertime, you're having air conditioning on in your home, same type of thing. Air can leak out, hot air can leak in, and that could reduce the efficiency of the air conditioner. And then, of course, adding insulation to your house also affects or helps that as well. So again, you're going to see that number 43% come up a bunch because that's the amount of money we waste with our energy because the energy is being unnecessarily wasted. And again, we want to try to figure out ways to improve our energy efficiency. So why do we need a new energy transition? Well, the world is in the early stages of that transition. And what is that transition? Moving away from fossil fuels to energy efficiency and renewable energy. And we talked a lot about this, why we need to do this in the previous chapter. Again, fossil fuels are non-renewable. So at some point they are going to run out. And in addition, most of the fossil fuels or most of the non-renewable energy, including nuclear energy, has waste products that we have to deal with and that degrade the environment. So again, we need this new energy transition. We have to get to, again, more energy efficiency, and we need to start moving to renewable energy. And the world is in the early stages of this transition. So in order to make this transition successfully, we have to establish new energy priorities. So again, this new energy transition is needed. We need to improve energy efficiency, and we need to reduce energy waste. We need to decrease our dependence on non-renewable fossil fuels, like I was talking about, and we need to rely more on a mix of those renewable energy sources that we're going to talk more about in detail as we go through part one and part two of this lecture on chapter 15. What are the benefits of these new energy priorities? We'll save money, we're going to create jobs, we're going to reduce air pollution, and we're going to keep climate change from accelerating. So a lot of win-wins when it comes to this new energy priority. The shift is due to the increasing availability of cheaper solar and wind advances in renewable technology, and this is now allowing us to start this transition to these new more renewable energy sources. Again, in the past, we had the availability, but it cost so much money. Well, now new technology is making it cheaper. And again, as solar and wind becomes cheaper to gather, right? That solar and wind energy to turn into electricity, to turn into energy that we can use as that process becomes cheaper. The hope is that more people and more communities and more countries will shift to those renewable energy resources. So one of those countries is Germany. Germany is a renewable energy superpower. By 2050, these are Germany's goals: to obtain 60% of their energy from renewable resources, to increase electricity efficiency by 50%, to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 80 to 95%, and to sharply reduce the use of coal. And they are well on their way to achieving these goals. They have something called a feed-in tariff, where utilities must buy electricity from homeowners with solar cells and feed that into the electrical grid. So this is actually allowing people or causing people to put solar cells in their homes because basically the utilities are forced in Germany to buy any excess electricity from the homeowner. So this can help the homeowner's bottom line, right? Can help their pocket, because not only are they using electricity from their own solar panels, but now the utility companies in Germany have to buy any excess energy left over from these individuals, which even increases a little bit of, some of them making a little bit of profit. So again, it's encouraging people to put these solar panels on their homes. It's encouraging people to, again, move from non-renewable energy to renewable energy resources. So why is improving energy efficiency and reducing energy waste an important energy resource? Well, improvements in energy efficiency and reductions in energy waste could save at least 1/3 of the energy used in the world, and up to 43% of the energy used in the United States. Because again, we're wasting 43%. If you look around the world, save at least 1/3 of the energy used. So think about that. We're wasting all this energy. So if we can just forget about going to renewable energy. Let's just leave that for a second. This is just talking about making the energy we're using more efficient. If we can do that, think about how much less energy we will use, right? If we're wasting 33% in the world, up to 43% here in the United States, right, of that energy being wasted, we could use that energy instead, and that then reduces the amount of energy that we need, right? So this is the key, right? If you improve your energy efficiency, you reduce the amount of energy needed because you're not wasting so much, and that right there and there can save some of these resources for future use. Many technologies exist for increasing energy efficiency of industry, vehicle, appliances, and buildings already, and again, we're starting to do that as well as this transition starts, but it starts slowly. So again, we waste a lot of energy and money. So more into this. What is that energy efficiency I've been talking about? How much useful work we get from each unit of energy. Energy conservation is reducing or eliminating the unnecessary energy waste that unfortunately happens, right? So what are some sources of this energy waste? We spoke about it a little bit in that initial core case study. We have poorly insulated buildings. We have a reliance on cars for getting around. Again, cars are really not that energy efficient, unfortunately. We have these huge data centers that are filled with electronic servers, right, for the internet and all these technology things that we're using. Use only 10% of energy that they actually consume, right? So they consume all this energy, but only about 10% of it is actually used. So all the other energy is being wasted in these electronic servers. Think about that. They use only 10% of the energy. So 90% is being wasted in these huge data centers with these electronic servers. We got to figure that out, right? Motor vehicles with internal combustion engines, nuclear, coal, and natural gas power plants, right? We spoke about that in chapter 14, how much energy it takes to actually create energy that we can use, right? So again, we're wasting a lot of energy and money. So here's an actual chart. This is the flow of commercial energy through the U.S. economy. And what you want to look at are the energy inputs on the left versus the energy outputs on the right. So you have non-renewable fossil fuels. Again, we're using most of that. 82% of our inputs right now are from the non-renewable fossil fuels. 8% is from non-renewable nuclear. Only 10% of our energy inputs right now here in the U.S. are from the renewable energy that we're going to talk about in this unit, hydropower, geothermal, wind, solar, biomass. But when you put these inputs into the economy, the output, 9% useful energy, 7% ends up being petrochemicals that can be used. So only 16% of the energy inputs actually comes out as useful for performing tasks. Right? The rest of this, this is 84% of the energy is wasted, right? Red is unavoidable energy loss, and 43 is energy waste that is avoidable, right? There's that 43% again. So if we can at least try to lower this number to increase these numbers up here, we're doing ourselves a favor. Again, the unavoidable energy loss, maybe we can deal with that right now, but it's this energy waste that we need to reduce because, again, we're inputting all this energy and only 16% is coming out as useful energy that we can actually do and perform tasks with. The rest of it is wasted. right? So again, think about how much money we're wasting and think about how many resources we're wasting. If you can reduce this 43 to increase this 9 and this 7, not only are you saving money, but you're also saving energy resources, right? So it's a win-win situation to try to figure out how to reduce that energy that is being wasted. So how can we improve energy efficiency? Here are some solutions. This again prolongs the fossil fuel supplies, right? So if we improve the energy efficiency, this goes back to the previous chapter, but again, we can actually prolong the fossil fuel supplies. That's your coal, that's your natural gas, that's your oil, because we'd end up using less of it because we're wasting less of it, right? Reduces oil imports and improves energy security, right? We don't have to rely on, we can rely on ourselves more, don't have to rely on other countries and other societies to help us out. A very high net energy, right? If we can improve our energy efficiency, the net energy gets higher, right? And that's what we want. Reduces pollution and environmental degradation. It buys time to phase in the renewable energy, right? So if we can improve the energy efficiency, again, it buys us some time, and it can create local jobs as well, which is another win-win. So again, understand these solutions or how we can improve that energy efficiency. So again, some other ideas on how we can improve energy efficiency in industries and utilities. First is by something called cogeneration. What is cogeneration? Well, that's when you combine heat and power together. You basically, two forms of energy come from the same fuel source, right? Co meaning two, generation. We're generating energy from two sources, or basically we're creating two forms of energy from one source, all right? We're generating two forms of energy from the same fuel source here, and that can obviously improve the energy efficiency of your industries and your utilities. We can replace energy wasting electric motors. We can recycle materials, use energy efficient LED lighting, which I know I have in my home. Maybe some of your parents have kind of phased out the normal lighting and have put in those energy efficient LED lighting. Meter energy use, right? If we meter it, then people will pay more, and shut down unused computers and lights. I go around my house all the time shutting lights off. My daughter thinks, and my wife, my son, they think I'm crazy. They're like, why are you living in the dark? Well, I'm living in the dark because it saves energy and it saves money, right? If you're not in the room, why is the light on, right? If you're not downstairs in the basement, why is the light on? Okay, so things like that. It seems silly, but it actually can help if we all shut off those lights if we're not in the room, right? All right. Another way is to build an interactive and more energy efficient electrical grid. The current electrical grid system is outdated and wasteful. You may have heard a lot about this in the news. So this interactive grid would have ultra high voltage, super efficient transmission lines that don't waste energy. It would be digitally controlled, right? So if you get to a certain amount of energy, it would shut off and maybe send the energy to another area that needs it more than this area. So you can kind of spread the energy use around. Responds to local changes in demand and supply. That's what the digitally controlled mechanisms would actually do. Easier to buy renewable energy on this interactive grid, and it could save us $2 trillion over the next 20 years. So obviously the problem with all of this is that it takes money, it takes capital, initial capital to change the grid. So what happens is people realize their taxes may go up because this extra money is needed, and so people end up stopping these projects. But what they don't think about is what will happen over the next 10, 20, 30 years. While it may have some initial capital initially to create the interactive grid, right? Over 20 years, you're going to save that money and more. So it's just a matter of time. And again, that's the issue. And that's the issue when we'll talk about solar panels in just a bit, right? It costs a lot to put them on your home. Eventually, you'll make your money back, but it may take 10, 12 years, right? So the key is to make the technology cheaper so that you make your money back quicker, and then this would make these renewable energy resources potentially more mainstream. And that's what we're going to talk about over the rest of this part 1 and then part 2 of this lecture on chapter 15. Make transportation more energy efficient, right? So we have these hidden costs in gasoline. We have the corporate average fuel economy, right, that you see on your thing, 26 miles per gallon, 32 miles per gallon, etc. we don't really put in the hidden costs, right? Government subsidies and tax breaks for oil companies increase their profits. If you put in all the hidden costs, gas would cost about $12 per gallon, right? If we started at $12 per gallon gas, people would start screaming and yelling, and maybe we would actually get some more energy efficiency, right? But that's unfortunately probably not going to happen anytime soon. But again, this is that full cost pricing we talk about a lot in this course. Full cost pricing for gasoline, about $12 a gallon. So think about that next time you fill up and you think, the money you're paying right now is too much to fill up your car. Think about what it could be. But again, if gas was $12 a gallon, people would carpool, people would buy hybrid cars more so. And again, this is how we could potentially get people off that or away from those wasteful car engines. Build or expand mass transit and high-speed rail. We actually do a good job on that here in the New York City metro area, but many parts of the country really have no mass transit, have no rail system, so that could help. Carry more freight by rail instead of trucks, because trains don't waste as much energy as trucks do. And encourage biking by building those bike lanes, right? Not only do you save the environment, but you make yourself healthier as well by biking. So there's another win-win situation there. So let's talk a little bit more about switching to energy efficient vehicles. Again, where we waste a lot of our energy is in our cars, as again, the engines that are used in the cars really are not that efficient. So we have a couple of ideas here, or a couple of actually not ideas, they're actually out in the marketplace right now. We have gasoline electric hybrid cars. We have plug-in hybrid electric cars. We have electric vehicles with a hydrogen fuel cell. And we have car bodies that are beginning to be made of more light composite materials that, again, if your car is lighter, it'll take less energy to move the car. So again, the lighter the car, the more energy efficient it's going to be. So what do we have here? On the left is your conventional hybrid. This is a conventional gasoline electric car, which is powered by a small internal combustion engine with assist from a strong battery. So basically, in a conventional hybrid, you still have to put gas in as you run the car on with the combustion engine. The battery is being recharged, but then you can kind of switch over to the battery if your speeds are slower, or if they're in traffic or things like that. So that's what your conventional hybrid. Your plug-in hybrid has a smaller internal combustion engine, so you still need a little bit of gas, but not as much, because there's a second, more powerful battery with the plug-in hybrid, and you can actually plug the battery in to a socket and recharge the battery. So in the plug-in hybrid, you're going to use more of the battery than the gas part. And then not shown here, but a totally electric car is run totally on a rechargeable battery that you plug in. No gas is needed. And so again, we have these three types of cars out there now. And again, over the course of the last 10, 15 years or so, you've seen definitely an increase in these hybrids because the price is coming down, right? As the price comes down, normal folks like you and I can get in and buy this stuff, and then it becomes more mainstream. And again, that's all about the technology. And that's, again, I keep saying it to you guys. You guys are going to be heading out. You guys are going to be into the workforce. Hopefully, some of you can figure out a way to continue to make the technology cheaper, to continue to make these energy efficient vehicles more mainstream so that more people can afford them, and then more people will buy them. All right, next we're going to talk about buildings. Let's design buildings that save energy and money, right? Because a lot of our buildings are wasteful because you have heat that's just being left. We're losing heat from leaks, right? Or losing air conditioning because of leaks, things like that. So we have green architecture, which is just, again, what it sounds like, plants and trees and things like that. Living or green roofs, specially formulated soil and vegetation that actually grow on the roof of a building. Super insulation, when you have no need for a heating system. The U.S. Green Building Council's Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, called LEED, is in the process of setting these standards on how we can kind of create buildings that are more green, that are more energy efficient. So here's an example. This is the green roof on Chicago's City Hall. You'll notice the plants growing up on the roof. The plants actually trap heat that tries to escape, and also absorb a lot of the heat coming in from the sun so it doesn't go into the building. So again, it's kind of a natural way to insulate your building there, the top of the building, by putting plants and gardens and things like that on your roof. So, ways to reduce energy use in buildings. You want to first get a home energy audit to maybe see where you are losing energy, where you're gaining energy. Again, insulate the building and plug those leaks. You want to use energy efficient windows. Stop other heating and cooling losses, and you can do that by using energy efficient windows and insulating the building, right? Heat interior spaces more efficiently. You want to heat water more efficiently, and you want to use energy efficient appliances, computers, and lighting in your buildings. So here again, just some things that you could potentially do around your home, right? Attic, hang reflective foil near the roof to reflect heat. Use a house fan in the attic, right? Bathroom, install water-saving toilets or those shower heads, right? That are water-saving. Repair those leaks. Kitchen, use the microwave rather than the stove as much as possible. Run full loads in the dishwasher. Again, basic stuff, right? Outside, plant deciduous trees around your home, right? Because they block they block sunlight in the summer, keeping your house cool. And then in the winter, the leaves are gone. They let the sunlight through, keeping your house warm, right? So deciduous trees are a win-win situation. Plant them around your home. Again, use LED light bulbs. Turn off the lights, computers, when not using them, right? Use those high efficiency windows. Set the thermostat low, right? Caulk your doors, windows. That's that white stuff. Light fixtures to decrease the heat loss. Use fans with air conditioning or instead of air conditioning, right? In the basement, hang clothes on racks for drying. You can do that instead of running the dryer, right? Use a water heater thermal blanket. You put a blanket around your water heater, which helps keep the hot water hot, and therefore you don't have to run the water heater as much. Regularly clean or replace those furnace filters, again, to keep your heater more efficient. So again, just have a couple of ideas here. You may need to pull a few of these out on an FRQ somewhere. So again, just understand things you can do to save energy and money in existing buildings. So why are we wasting so much energy and money? Well, the main reason is because energy remains artificially cheap. Like we talked about that gasoline, right? You put in the full cost pricing, it's $12 a gallon. We're not anywhere near that, right? So energy remains cheap. Why? Government subsidies, tax breaks, and again, prices don't include the true cost to the environment. That's that full cost pricing. Few large and long-lasting incentives for improving energy efficient and reducing waste. We don't have a lot. There are very few of them, so maybe we need to come up with these bigger and more long-lasting incentives, and something called the rebound effect, right? We really don't necessarily want to do this because it's maybe more difficult to be able to do. So we do, though, need to rely more on renewable energy. And reasons renewable energy use is not more prevalent today: inaccurate perceptions that solar and wind energy are unreliable and intermittent. It's not the case anymore, right? It may be 20, 30, 40 years from now that was the case, but the technology is there right now. Solar, wind, they're not unreliable. They're not intermittent. They're very reliable. You will have energy. Government subsidies and tax breaks lower for renewable energy than for fossil fuels. Again, we talked about this. Right now, the government gives tax breaks to the coal and the oil and the gas companies more than they give to the solar and the wind energy companies, and we need to change that. Prices for non-renewable energy, again, do not include harmful environmental impacts, right? That's the full cost pricing. If gasoline was $12 a gallon, I would guarantee that most of us would be driving hybrid cars at this point, right? Not the case. And so many of us aren't driving those hybrid cars as of yet. And of course, any shift in energy is going to take many decades, but that's why we really need to start now. And again, we are starting now. It's just taking a slow time. All right. So that's kind of the part of the book, the chapter 15, that talks about energy efficiency and improving our efficiency, reducing our waste. Now we're actually going to go in and start talking about each individual type of renewable energy out there. We're going to start off with solar energy. That will end part 1 of my lecture, and then we'll go into the other renewable energy sources in part 2 of my lecture on chapter 15. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of using solar energy? Well, Well, we have passive and active solar heating systems can heat water and buildings rather effectively. And we'll talk about what they are in just a second. Cost of using sunlight to produce electricity is falling rapidly. Again, that's the technology getting better, getting cheaper, and allowing mainstream people like you and I to potentially get into this solar revolution, this sunlight way to produce electricity. All right, so let's talk about heating buildings and water with solar energy. So again, there are two types of heating systems out there. One is called passive solar heating, and another is called active solar heating. So what is passive solar heating? This absorbs and stores heat from the sun directly within a well-insulated structure. Passive, right? Really not doing much. Active captures energy from the sun in a heat-absorbing fluid. All right, so let's talk about that. Here we are. On the left is passive. On the right is active. So passive sounds just what it is. There's really nothing much going on here. You have a house that is insulated. The sun is allowed to come in the windows, all right? Visible light gets in, all right, then heats the home. The heat radiates out in the infrared. Infrared has a longer wavelength, and so the windows and the house, the roof, the surrounding, the walls, right, block the infrared radiation. So it heats up the house, basically like a greenhouse, right? A greenhouse would be an example of a passive solar heating system. Sunlight is allowed in, heat is not allowed out, and there you go. Your house is hot. And that's basically how you do it. Then in the wintertime or in the summer, if it's too hot, you would basically put blinds over the windows to stop the sunlight from coming into the house, and that's how you would regulate the temperature in your house. Again, you would need heavy insulation, white or light colored roofs to reduce overheating, right? White has a high albedo, so going to reflect more of that sunlight. And then a vent allows hot air to escape in the summer, and you got these super windows that are basically a few panes thick here. You'll notice, again, allowing the sunlight in, but not allowing the heat to go out. In an active solar heating system, the difference is you have a solar collector on the roof. You have then pipes with a pump that has water going through the solar collector. As the water goes up into the solar collector, it heats up, right? You then take that hot water into a tank here that you then you use that hot water to then produce your heat in the house, all right? Heat to house radiators or forced air duct would then take that hot water and basically force it into these ducts, which then release the heat from the hot water and heat your home. So this is active because you need this pump here to pump the water, keep circulating it right up to the solar collector to heat up, and then back down into the house to then be used by the radiator to produce heat. Either way, though, you're not using the only energy you're using to heat your home, and either the passive or the active is sunlight, and you're not using any other forms of energy. But again, active, again, you have this pump, you have water going through, and then that water, again, releases the heat in a radiator type system. All right, so understand the difference between passive and active solar heaters here. But again, both are efficient ways to heat your home. So let's just talk about, again, as always, there are some disadvantages, right? Here are your trade-offs, passive or active solar heating, either one. Advantages, it has a medium net energy, very low emissions of carbon dioxide and other air pollutants, very low land disturbance, and a moderate cost, especially for the passive. The active might be a little cheap, a little more expensive. Disadvantages, you need access to the sun 60% of the time during daylight, so this isn't going to work in an area where you have a lot of clouds throughout the year, or maybe if your home is blocked by trees, this could be a problem. Again, there you go. Sun can be blocked by trees and other structures. High installation and maintenance costs, especially for the active systems. Again, that's that initial capital we have to put in. So what we need to do is we need to get the technology better so that those high installation and maintenance costs are reduced. And you need a backup system for cloudy days. So again, those are some issues that you could have with the passive or active solar heating. All right, how can we, though, cool buildings naturally? So that was talking about how to heat your building naturally. Well, how can we cool them? Well, methods to keep a building cool. Open windows when it's cooler outside, obviously. You can use fans. Super insulation and high efficiency windows, again, will prevent the heat from coming in if you are using air conditioning. Again, those shade trees, overhangs, or window awnings to keep the sunlight out. Light colored roof, again, increasing the albedo, increasing the reflection of solar radiation. Geothermal heat pumps bring cool air from underground. That's something we'll talk about in part 2 of this lecture. But geothermal, actually using Earth's heat and cooling it's heating and cooling system to actually heat and cool our homes. And again, more on that coming up. So talking about concentrating sunlight to produce high temperature heat and electricity. So we talked about solar collectors and a passive solar house. Now we're going to talk about more of those solar panels that you see. So what are solar thermal systems? They collect sunlight to boil water and produce steam to generate electricity, right? The water boils, you get steam. The steam then runs a turbine, which then produces electricity. Used in deserts and open areas with ample sunlight, especially in California. I'll show you some pictures in just a second. They do require large volumes of cooling water for the condensing steam and cleaning mirrors. So that's a little negative there. You do need large amounts of water. And right now, they have a low net energy yield, and that's because of the price that it costs to actually set this whole thing up. But again, if we can make it cheaper, that technology down the road, well, then that will increase that net energy yield. So what we're looking at here, this is a solar thermal power. This is basically a solar power plant in the Mojave Desert in California. Basically, you have these collectors. They're concave and they are collecting sunlight, right, in these solar panels. That sunlight is then heating water. That is then boiling, that then produces steam, that then runs the turbine, that then produces electricity. And again, you're not seeing that here. What you're seeing are the solar collectors, but again, they're going to heat that water, turn it to steam, run a turbine. The next type we look at here, again, same type of situation. This is again in California, and this is an array of mirrors that actually track the sun. And while the mirrors themselves don't have they're not actually collecting the energy, the sun's energy. They're reflecting the energy to this central area here where the sunlight is focused. And then in the central area that all that sunlight is focused, then that heats the water, which then produces steam, which then runs the turbine. All right. So again, two different types of solar thermal heating systems here. Again, one, kind of traditional solar panels collect the sunlight, heat the water that's running through it, right? Pipes run through it. Then you take that heated water somewhere else, steam turbine. Here, you're just basically focusing the sun onto a central area here where that sunlight, that energy is then collected, boils the water, which turns to steam, which then runs the turbine, which then produces the electricity that is used. And again, in California, they are kind of the leaders in this, and that's because there's a lot of sunlight out there in California, especially in Southern California, and so they are able to do this very efficiently. So here are your solar thermal systems. Again, have advantages, have disadvantages. Advantages, a high potential for growth. Again, this is where you guys come into play as the new folks heading out there into the workforce soon. No direct emissions of carbon dioxide and other air pollutants, lower cost with a natural gas turbine backup, and again, sources for new jobs. Disadvantages, right now you got the low net energy and high cost. Again, but if we can decrease the costs, that will increase the net energy. You still need a backup or storage system on cloudy days, requires a lot of water use, so that's something we need to deal with. And you can disrupt desert ecosystems, right? I mean, obviously you can see these pictures here, you're throwing all this stuff in a desert that could disrupt the ecosystem a bit. So those are things we have to think about and we have to work through as we continue to install these. Another fun thing to talk about are solar cookers. Solar cookers can replace wood and charcoal fires. I actually did this in AP training a couple of years ago when I went up to Connecticut. We actually, the guy there who was training, he had one of these solar cookers. We basically put a chicken, or I think it was a turkey or something, in a pan. We put potatoes, we put carrots all around it, and we put it in a pan. We put it in this solar cooker, which is basically just something surrounded with it's like a little greenhouse in a way, right? That allows the visible light in, doesn't allow the heat to get out. And we put it there at 9 o'clock in the morning. It was a sunny day, and at 2 o'clock we did some other stuff. We came back, and the turkey was perfectly cooked. It was delicious. We ate it, the potatoes, the carrots. It was fantastic. And only thing that cooked it was the sun. There was no other energy involved. So this is something that could really be used in developing countries, right? A lot of them are using wood. They're using coal to cook, which is very, very bad. We're going to talk in a couple of of chapters, we're going to talk about human health. And one of the big issues in human health is air pollution indoors, because in third world countries, people are still using wood and coal for their own heat, for cooking, but in their house. Right, so all this smoke is in the house. Is why it's a real health issue. So here you don't have any of that. You just give this little solar cooker, and they can cook all they want, especially in places of the world where you get a lot of sunlight. Right, this may not work in Seattle, or this may not work in London as well. Right, and some days you could do it, but not all the time. But in parts of Africa where it's dry and sunny and hot always, this would work great. So again, solar cookers could be the new wave of the future. All right. Then we use solar cells to produce electricity. This is going to be the last 5 slides of part 1. So I just want to say what we were looking at previously with those solar cells, the cells themselves weren't producing the electricity. The cells were collecting solar energy that then was heating water that produces steam that runs a turbine that then produces the energy. Here, these photovoltaic cells, they convert solar energy directly to electrical energy. So this is what you're getting on people's homes, on people's roofs of their houses, right? They're not necessarily running water through the solar panels on the roof of their house. The solar panels are converting the solar energy directly to electrical energy, right? And these are not called solar panels. They're called photovoltaic cells, or PV cells. So please make the distinction. Again, with those solar panels from before, collecting the sun's energy into heat that then warms water, steam, turbine energy. Here, photovoltaic cells, again, and we call them solar cells, all right, convert solar energy directly to electrical energy that then can be used. There's no water, there's no turbines being spun, none of that's going on. So, design of solar cells: sunlight hits the cells and produces a flow of electrons. The systems then can be connected to existing electrical grids or to batteries. Those electrons go in, and that produces the energy. Solar cells are made of paper-thin, rigid, or flexible sheets. They're enabled by nanotechnology and other emerging technologies. So nowadays, you have solar panels that are really, really tiny, right? 20, 30 years ago, that wasn't the case, and they were thicker, right? Now they can be very, very thin. So again, here's the rural use of solar. Rooftop solar panels can actually power LED lamps in rural communities, and you actually can get solar-powered microgrids. So an example of that, it'll be on slide 4, sorry. I'll show you a picture of on a hut in Africa. They have a solar cell actually giving that hut some electricity. But what are the problems with our current solar cells? Again, right now, the energy efficiency is rather low. Scientists and engineers are developing more efficient cells. So again, this is where you can make some money, right? Maybe you can come up with the most efficient solar cell, and I guarantee if you do, you will be a very rich person, all right? So maybe, again, just ways that you guys going out into the workforce, think about if you are going into environmental science, maybe you can come up with a very efficient a solar cell. Solar cells have become the world's fastest growing ways to produce electricity, and you can see why. Look at this, right? The technology has gotten to the point where this is a rural hut in West Bengal, India. All right, but again, you can see this in any developing country, or even in parts of the U.S. that are rural and maybe don't have electricity. Right here, this is a little solar panel and actually running some LED lights in this hut. Right. These people actually have electricity, even though they are not on any electrical grid. They're producing it themselves because the technology has gotten cheap enough that they are able to do it, right? The cheaper and cheaper the technology gets, the more of these you'll see on people's homes. And then again, the more that transition away from the non-renewable fossil fuels will accelerate. Again, we just need better technology. So solar cells, advantages, disadvantages. All right, advantages: little or no direct emissions of carbon dioxide and other air pollutants. It's pretty much clean, easy to install, move around, and expand as needed. And there are competitive costs for newer cells these days. Disadvantages: obviously, you need access to the sun. You need an electricity storage system or a backup. Low net energy, but again, likely to improve as the technology makes or the technology advances make the solar cells cheaper. And solar cell power plants could again disrupt the desert ecosystems. So that's something we would just have to watch out for. All right, so that will conclude part 1 of my lecture on chapter 15, energy efficiency and renewable energy. Again, there will be a part 2, so make sure to tune in for that. And as always, thanks for listening.